All right, next up, Juliet Thavong from Kane County, who is a preservation planner there. Her work focuses on the documentation of historic structures in the county and assisting Kane County residents with the county's historic preservation program. And some of the folks involved in planning today's summit had heard her give a previous presentation that we thought would be of interest, looking at women trailblazers, particularly in our Fox watershed, and maybe Cassie is going to be one of them. And we'll talk about it someday.
Yeah.
All yours, Julia.
It works and up and down. Okay.
Or side to side.
Or side. Okay. Well, thanks. Like they said, I'm the preservation planner for Kane County, and what that means for you all is that I am interested in documenting historic buildings and then, where possible, preserving them. And as a part of Karen's submission of the national, the Fabulous Fox Water Trail to the National Water Trail System for designation, there are 2 best management practices that needed to be met and that I could help out with. The first was education, and the second was public information. So this presentation focuses on those people in Kane County's history, particularly in the Tri-City area, that really are not as well documented as our basic history. So this was a really fun project for me, and I just wanted to share it with you all so that you could see how much information is really actually out there and available, but just not very well known. And the best part about this is everything is so electronic these days that I was really able to work with just our local historic societies, museums, local governments. It was almost all online exclusively. So all you have to do is put in that search term and it pops up. So it's quite easy to do. And yeah, or digital format. The state actually had a good bit of information as well, state of Illinois. And we would like to encourage all of the sections of the Fox River to just do a quick little search and see what you can find about your section of the river. And we can build up that National Water Trail plan. So I will just let you know that this is an area that is not in the Tri-City area, but I loved it because it's a really good example of what Kane County, likely Wisconsin, maybe even fewer buildings in Wisconsin, looked like when it was, new, freshly settled. This is a mill here on the river. This is the Fox River, sorry. And you can see we have some dirt roads and like 5 buildings. So what I've found was information on women trailblazers, African Americans finding freedom in our Fox Valley, and the immigrants getting the job done. But I didn't want to skip over the history that everybody knows existed, but it's rather hard to see these days. It's the Native Americans that lived here, primarily in Kane County. We had the Potawatomi. They were there in the 1700s and on. This is a statue that is on the Fox River in St. Charles. It's Equabet, which means watching over. So this is a symbolic Potawatomi chief looking over the river to honor the presence of the Potawatomi and their ancestors on the Fox River in Kane County. Just to scrape off the top with the information here. The map on the left shows the different Native American tribes and their tribal boundaries, which of course are, you know, very fluid from 1700 to 1769. And if you look up by Lake Michigan, the lavender is the Potawatomi, and you can see where that actually covers the Des Plaines and the Fox River. And I will tell you, the Potawatomi Indians basically kicked out everybody else who was there. There was a lot of, I mean, they weren't exclusive. There were the Sac and the Fox were on the Rock River, and there were, you know, there were other tribes around. But the Potawatomi did dominate the scenery at that time. They did live in wigwams, which were made from sapling trees, and then they were covered basically with bark shingles, which I thought was really cool. It's like, oh, those are the Native Americans that used wigwams. They were agrarian in nature. They would also, of course, follow game as they migrated and other resources. And then, of course, they were also known to fish on their rivers. I thought I was really lucky to find this picture of these long nets and the Potawatomi Indians in their bark boats, or canoes, I should say, sorry, fishing. In 1829, the state of Illinois was becoming more populated with white European settlers, and the U.S. government wanted to see Illinois cleared out for those white settlers. And at the end of July, or in July, Potawatomi and other tribes signed a treaty with the United States government in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, giving up much of their territory. Kane County is no longer a vertical county, it's now horizontal. So flip it. And you can see Secession 148 went all the way past the Rock River and went down to Yorkville, up to Evanston, if you're familiar with the area, and then all the way, I don't actually know where Oregon is, so, but over to Dixon. It's an incredible amount of territory that they relinquished. They thought that they were giving up the rights to, I think, farm, but no, they just had to leave. So in 1838, I'm sorry, the U.S. began to forcibly remove the Potawatomi from Indiana and Illinois, and the Potawatomi called this event the Trail of Death, not like the Trail of Tears, but the Trail of Death. By 1850, almost all of Northeast Illinois had no more Native Americans. So the concentration of the presentation I want to show you is approximately 10 miles of the Fox River. It is the Tri-City area. And it's going to be about the women and men that were not documented in regular Kane County history. This occurred mostly because when the state was settled, in order to own property, you had to be a white man. Nobody else owned any property at that time. So, and I just want to also say, as a historian, I like to look at things from beginning to end, chronologically. However, for people that are interested in the Fox, I've gone from north to south. I will struggle because I don't think of this information in this way. So it's out of order if you ask me. So anyway, The first place I'm going to talk about is Miss Pikes Progressive Camp. This was a camp that was started by two sisters. It was like Dorcas and Margaret Pike. They were both teachers. They got their teaching degrees or certifications from Columbia College in the city of Chicago. And they came and they had this camp for both boys and girls, and they were learning a lot of environmental information, which was not generally taught at this time. I'm sure they still did, you know, arts and crafts, but the whole reason this happened was because people started coming to the Fox River from the local areas and also from Chicago just to cool off because they didn't have air conditioning. So people would spend time swimming in the river, boating, and then this became so popular that they started building camps, which, you know, I know is popular up in the Northeast, but we had our very own camp area there. And so these ladies decided to take advantage of this leisure movement in the area. Okay, so the next marker down on our trip here is the home of James T. Wheeler. He was a farmer, but he was also an abolitionist and was a member of the Kane County Anti-Slavery Society. James Wheeler and multiple other people in Kane County and far beyond, of course, helped shelter runaway slaves, and he would keep runaway slaves in his home. He would feed and shelter them, and then would let them know when it was okay to go on and continue running alongside the river north to Canada to freedom. But I did want to show, if you can see the where his property is there with the blue arrow. This is a picture from the 20s or 30s, 20s probably. And this building is actually still visible today. It's changed quite a bit, but the original house is actually still within, and it's basically hidden by those two trees. It's Route 31, so it's, you know, you can't really slow down, and I didn't take time to do that. But it is visible from 31. Obviously, this is 31 that's running right here in front. It's also right in front of the Fearson Creek Fen, which is fronts on the Fox River. And right now, it's a clear shot because they've just cleaned up the Fen quite a bit. You know, in anticipation of the spring, but it sits up on a hill, so it's hard to miss, and it would have been hard to miss at the time because it would have been the only place with lights and smoke. Okay, my next person is Delora Norris. She was an heiress to the Texas oil tycoons. Sorry, I forgot the word for, but she inherited all his money. She and her uncle inherited a lot of money, and she really poured her money into the improvement of the city of St. Charles. She built the Arcada Theater in 1926, still there. She built the Del Nor Hospital, which is still there. It's now senior living. And the St. Charles Municipal Building, which was designed by Harold Zook, which is an important Illinois architect. And the City of St. Charles Municipal Building is obviously still there as well. But, oh, and as you can see, the municipal building is on the river. and the Arcata is about a block away from the river. This next one is Annunciata Nancy Lindsione. She decided to open a fruit store on the corner about 2 blocks away from the river in the city of St. Charles. It's Route 64. Because the fruit that was available at the other markets was substandard for her, so she decided she would bring her own fruit in. She named her store the Blue Goose, if you all know St. Charles at all. It grew into a regular grocery store and was viable for 94 years with Nancy's family, and just closed last year. But this building is still here. This is, there's a candy store on the first floor. It's called Rocket Fizz. Okay. So one of the best stories that we have about people that were escaping slavery is the Joanna Garner story, again in the city of St. Charles. She had come from, she came up the Missouri River. She escaped and followed the Illinois River to the Fox River, and then instead of actually continuing up the river and getting to Canada to freedom, she had enough support from the people in St. Charles and the Anti-Slavery Union. And of course, at 65, the war was over, but still freed slaves were not really welcomed many places. In 1882, Joanna's family members continued on in St. Charles, and in 1882, the Free Methodist Church was built on South 3rd Street, and this church was known for their anti-slavery sentiments, and their motto was free seats and human freedom for all, because I guess you had to pay for a seat in the Methodist Church. Still there today, and that's the 3rd Street Dance Company. The next one is the Preservation Partners of the Fox Valley. They saved the Beef House, which is right there on the river, again in St. Charles. The whole organization was founded on saving historic buildings in Kane County. The Beef House is still there. M. Forsyth and her sister created a tea room in what was formerly a blacksmith shop along the river. First, it was a tea room in the blacksmith shop alone, and then she built on and had a great business there until 39. I have the Island Pavilion building that was built by the women of Geneva, still there, still used today. The Little Traveler, a lot of people know, 3rd Street in Geneva. It was a business that was started by Kate Rafferty and her husband. They turned their house into a boutique store, basically. It's had its 100-year anniversary last year. Still there, still used quite a bit. This is actually the real winner of what happened on the Fox River. Elizabeth Friedman, the woman on the far left in that picture, she was the first cryptanalyst in the US. And everything she did was she was breaking codes. She broke codes in World War I. She broke bootleggers' codes in between time, and then broke 3 of the Enigma codes during World War II. And she, I'm being told to stop. All of her work was classified until 2019. So they also have a Japanese garden designed by a Japanese landscape architect. It was kept up by another Japanese man that lived in the city of Geneva. The Japanese garden is still there and maybe partially visible from the river. But this was all Colonel Fabian's property. And then lastly, I have John Osier, and he was a freedman who had lived in the city of Chicago. He had 2 houses, and they both burned down in the Chicago fire. And so he decided to look for greener pastures, and he built this log cabin in Batavia. And he settled there along with a lot of other free African-American people. And the area, the neighborhood was called Laurelwood. And it is actually, the neighborhood is now a park, but it is on the Fox River. But all of the buildings that were associated with these early settlers are gone, but it's still an African-American neighborhood there in Batavia, right there on the river. And that brings me to the end of my presentation.